My name is Fatima. I am 35 years old, and on July 22nd, 2022, my life as I knew it was scheduled to end. Not with a public execution, but with a death of the soul, a televised humiliation for the entire nation. As the first wife of a powerful Saudi government minister, I was ordered to publicly preside over and bless his marriage to two new wives, teenagers young enough to be my daughters. My obedience would be the cornerstone of a new political alliance, and my forced smile would be proof of my submission. But Jesus, the defender of the oppressed, had an escape plan that would defy the power of men. This is my testimony of how I was rescued from a gilded cage of despair. I was born in 1990 into a wealthy but non-royal family. My father was a successful businessman who had cultivated connections with the ruling elite. From an early age, I was educated for a single purpose: to be the perfect wife for a man of great influence. I learned several languages, mastered the art of hospitality, and studied global politics. Not to have a career, but to be an informed hostess and an intelligent accessory on my future husband's arm. I remember the constant pressure for perfection. Every move, every word was rehearsed. The expectations were my armor and my prison at the same time. I was never allowed to make a mistake, because an error of mine could mean a setback for my family's business or image. At 19, my fate was sealed. I married Tariq, a man 30 years my senior, a cabinet minister whose ambition was surpassed only by his cruelty. Our marriage was a transaction. My youth and my family's fortune in exchange for his status and power. On my wedding day, I moved into his palace in the diplomatic district of Riyadh, a fortress of glass and steel sprawling over 10 acres. I had a staff of over 50, a closet full of high fashion I could never wear outside the compound walls, and access to wealth that defied imagination. I had chauffeurs, private jets, and artwork valued at millions of dollars. But I want you to understand something about luxury cages. Their bars are subtler, but just as inescapable. Despite being surrounded by unimaginable opulence, my soul was in a state of starvation. The palace was dazzling, but deafeningly silent. The sound of my heels on the Italian imported marble was the only echo of my existence. The main reception hall had a vaulted ceiling with hand-painted frescoes and a crystal chandelier rumored to be worth more than a small village. Yet, in that immensity, I was a minuscule figure. I often found myself in my private library with thousands of books I never dared to touch, because the only reading I was allowed was that which didn't interfere with my social duties. Every day was a choreography of empty perfection. I would wake up, exercise with a personal trainer, meet with the chief of staff to plan menus and social events, and spend my afternoons alone, reading or wandering the silent marble halls. My husband, Tariq, treated me like his most valuable possession. He displayed me at state dinners as a trophy, praising my beauty and intelligence to foreign dignitaries. But in private, his affection was non-existent. He was a cold, calculating man for whom love was a weakness and people were pawns on his chessboard. His approval was a distant, cold sun that rarely reached me. I felt like an exquisite doll in a display box, admired by the outside world, but lifeless inside. Every night, I would lie in a 1,000-thread-count bed, staring at the gold leaf-adorned ceiling, and a silent scream would form in my heart. Is there anything more than this? A life of fake smiles and exquisite loneliness? The void was an abyss that grew deeper and darker with each passing year. My religious education had been that of any Saudi woman of my class, strict, ritualistic, and focused on obedience. I performed the 5 daily prayers, fasted during Ramadan, and never questioned the teachings imposed on me. But the prayers felt like reciting a script. The words rose to the ceiling and fell back down, unanswered, unconnected. I longed for a relationship with God, but all I was offered was a religion of rules and regulations. I was taught that my value as a woman resided in my ability to serve my husband and give him heirs. But after years of marriage, we had no children, a failure Tarek never let me forget. It was my fault, my deficiency, a stain on his honor. Ask yourself this right now. Have you ever felt that your worth is determined by someone else's approval? That your identity is trapped in the role you're expected to play? That was my suffocating reality. I had everything the material world could offer, but I felt spiritually bankrupt, invisible, worthless. My soul cried out for a love that was not conditional, for a purpose that went beyond being the wife of a powerful man. En marzo de 2022, y acompañé a Tariq a una conferencia económica internacional en Ginebra, Suiza. Estos viajes fueron las únicas veces en las que pude respirar aire diferente, aunque siempre estaba bajo el ojo vigilante de su equipo de seguridad. We stayed in a palatial suite overlooking Lake Geneva. While Tariq spent his days in meetings, I was confined to the hotel. It was during one of those long days that I met Layla. She was one of the Filipino nannies working for another delegation, a woman in her 50s with a smile that radiated a peace I had never known. We met in one of the hotel's private gardens. As I sat alone, she approached and offered me a cup of tea. We talked for hours. She didn't see me as the wife of a minister. She saw me as a lonely woman. She spoke of her life in the Philippines, her family, and, with astonishing naturalness, her faith. She spoke of Jesus, not the Prophet Isa I knew from the Quran, but a Jesus who was her personal friend, her savior, the source of her unwavering joy, despite the difficulties of working far from home. He loves me just as I am, Layla said, tears welling up in her eyes, not for what I do, but for who I am. In him, I am neither a servant nor a stranger. I am a daughter of the King. Her words were like a balm to my wounded soul. No one had ever spoken to me of a love like that. I asked her, my heart pounding, to tell me more. Over the next few days, we met in secret. She gave me a Bible app for my phone, teaching me how to hide it. She taught me how to pray, not with memorized phrases, but by speaking directly to God as a loving Father. At first, praying out loud was nearly impossible. My voice trembled. I felt ridiculous asking for help. But Layla told me, Jesus knows your heart, Fatima. Just speak. He hears every whisper. I read the Gospel of John in my hotel room, and every word seemed written for me. John 4. The story of the Samaritan woman resonated with me with a force that shattered me. She had had 5 husbands, and the man she was with was not her own. I hadn't had 5 husbands, but my life was equally complicated and filled with hidden shame. Jesus saw her. He didn't judge her. He didn't condemn her. He didn't treat her as a mere political object. He spoke to her of a deeper need than physical thirst. He told her, "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." I cried for an hour. I was that woman, rejected, judged, dying of spiritual thirst. And Jesus was offering me the same living water. The decisive moment came when I read Matthew 11:28. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." In that instant, in that luxury suite thousands of miles from my golden prison, I knelt by the window and surrendered my burden, my pain, and my life to Jesus Christ. A peace that transcends all understanding flooded my being. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. I felt the gold leaf of the ceiling and the cold marble fade away, and it was just me and the most loving presence I had ever known. It was not a religion of rules, it was a relationship of grace. Stop for a second and look into your own heart. Have you ever felt a burden so heavy you thought it would crush you? Do you long for rest for your soul? That is what Jesus offers. Subscribe if you believe there is hope even in the darkest situations. Returning to Riyadh was like stepping back into darkness after having seen the sun. My new faith was a dangerous secret, my only source of light in a world of shadows. I communicated with Layla through encrypted messaging apps, and she discipled me remotely. My phone, with its hidden digital Bible, became my most prized possession. I devoured the scriptures every night, finding in them the strength to endure my days. The love of Christ was transforming me from within, giving me a sense of worth and purpose that no amount of money or status could buy. But my new peace was about to be tested by fire. In early June, Tariq summoned me to his study. His face was radiant with a satisfaction that chilled my blood. "My dear wife," he said, with a coldness that belied his words, "I have wonderful news. To strengthen our ties with the Al-Fahd clan and the Al-Jamil conglomerate, I have decided to take their daughters as my new wives. Both are 17. The wedding will be next month." The floor seemed to disappear beneath my feet. He continued, explaining the plan with sadistic detail. The wedding would be the social event of the year. I, as the first wife, would play a central role. I was to host a welcome reception for them, appear in all the photos smiling between my husband and his new teenage brides, and give a speech praising his wisdom and generosity for expanding our family. "Your total cooperation is essential," he concluded, looking at me with his hawk-like eyes. "Any hesitation will be seen as a betrayal, not only to me, but to the kingdom. Your family would suffer the consequences of your disobedience." It was a spiritual death sentence. He was asking me to participate in my own annihilation, to legitimize my replacement, and become a glorified matron in my own home. In the following weeks, I lived in a state of constant terror. The palace filled with wedding planners and designers. I was forced to attend meetings where the details of the ceremony that would seal my humiliation were discussed. Every smile I forced, every nod of my head, felt like a betrayal of my soul and my new Lord. The internal struggle was brutal. One part of me, the 35-year-old Fatima raised in obedience, screamed, "You have no choice. Save your family. Do your duty. It's what you've always done." But the new Fatima, the daughter of the king, whispered, "You cannot dishonor the one who bought you with a price. Your worth is not in this house. Your life is hidden with Christ." The weight of having to choose between my family's security and fidelity to my faith was almost unbearable. My heart was torn in two. I felt the absolute powerlessness of a human being against the power structures surrounding me. One night, desperate, I tried to reason with him. I reminded him of the early years of our marriage, the few moments of companionship we had shared. "Tariq, please," I pleaded. "This is destroying me. Don't ask me to do this." He laughed, a cruel, dismissive laugh. "Destroying you? I am giving you an honor. Many women would dream of being in your position. Your duty is to obey and be grateful. Stop acting like a spoiled child." His rejection was the final blow. I knew there was no human way out. I was trapped. I could obey and die inside, or I could refuse and face ruin, disgrace for my family, and most likely, a severe fabricated punishment. Think about it. Have you ever faced an impossible choice where every option seems to lead to destruction? That is where God's power is perfected in our weakness. On the night of July 21st, 2022, the eve of the wedding, the palace was buzzing with activity. The new wives and their families had already arrived and were staying in another wing. I was confined to my quarters, supposedly to prepare spiritually for the big day. Guards were posted outside my door. I was a prisoner in my own home. I knelt on the cold marble floor of my room, my phone open to the Psalms. Tears streamed down my face as I read the words of King David, a man who also knew persecution and despair. My prayer was not eloquent. It was a cry from the depths of my being. Jesus, I sobbed in the darkness, you have shown me true love. You have given me a worth that no one can take away. I cannot dishonor you by smiling while my life is destroyed. I cannot participate in this evil, but I see no way out. I am trapped. Lord, if you are who you say you are, if your power is greater than the armies and kings of this world, show it to me now. Open a path where there is none. Release me, Lord. Please, release me. A las 3:33 de la mañana, una silenciosa soledad cayó sobre el palacio. No era la silenciosa noche, sino una silenciosa soledad que se imponía, un vacío total. The constant hum of the air conditioning stopped. The distant sounds of city traffic disappeared. Even the sound of my own breathing seemed muffled. And then, a soft light, like the dawn, began to fill my room, although it was still pitch black outside. In the midst of the light, I felt a presence. I did not see a figure, but I heard a voice, not with my ears, but in my spirit, as clear as if someone were standing next to me. The voice was one of infinite authority and love. Fatima, my daughter, I have seen your tears and heard your cry. Do you believe the man who holds you prisoner is more powerful than the God who created the heavens and the earth? Rise up. Dress in simple clothes. The door is open. The path has been cleared. Walk in faith, and I will lead you home. Fear evaporated, replaced by an audacity that was not my own. It was a calm that could only come from above. The fearful Fatima was gone. Only obedience remained. I could feel the power behind that voice. It was the same authority that had calmed a storm and raised the dead. If he said the door was open, regardless of what my eyes saw. I got up, put on a dark dress and a headscarf, and approached my bedroom door. The electronic lock, which normally required a code, was deactivated. The door opened without a sound. The hallway was empty. The guards who should have been on duty had vanished from their posts. I walked through the halls of my own house like a ghost. The security cameras, whose blinking red lights had always been a reminder of my surveillance, were off. The house staff, the guards, even my own husband in his main suite, were plunged into a deep, unshakable sleep, a sleep decreed by heaven. I reached a service door at the back of the compound, one I never used. It opened. I stepped out into the humid Riyadh night. The air of freedom was so sweet it almost choked me. Across the street, under the faint light of a street lamp, an inconspicuous car was parked with its lights on. The driver was a young Filipino man, Laila's nephew. Ella, de Ginebra, había activado una red cristiana subterránea. Ellos habían estado rezando y esperando un signo de Dios. Mi oración fue su signo. Él me entregó un pasaporte canadiense con mi foto y un nombre diferente, y un boleto de avión. Dios está contigo. Fue todo lo que dijo. Él me llevó al aeropuerto. En cada control esperaba que sonaran las alarmas para que me detuvieran. Mi corazón latía tan fuerte que pensé que los agentes de seguridad podían oírlo. But the hand of God was upon me. The fake passport passed all scanners. The immigration officer barely looked at me. I boarded a flight to Toronto via Istanbul. As the plane took off and I saw the lights of Riyadh shrink until they disappeared, I burst into tears, a cry of gratitude and awe. I had walked out of my captor's house. I had escaped my own destruction. Jesus had opened the Red Sea for me. Upon landing in Toronto, I was met by members of Lila's church. They took me to a safe house. I applied for asylum, and my story, told in private to immigration authorities, was believed. Tariq, humillado y furioso, usó toda su influencia para encontrarme. Él públicamente me acusó de adulterio y de robar millones de dólares en joyas, emitiendo una orden de arresto internacional. For months, I lived in fear, moving from place to place. But the Christian community became my shield and my family. I was baptized in a small lake in northern Ontario, and as I rose from the water, the old Fatima, the trophy wife, died forever. I was reborn, free and loved. The water was cold, but the warmth of the Holy Spirit enveloped me. In that moment, Jesus' words became real. I was buried with him in baptism, to be raised to a new life. In time and with the help of Christian lawyers and human rights organizations, the false accusations against me were dismissed. I began to rebuild my life. The rebuilding was not easy. The trauma persisted, and simple things were a challenge. I remember my first time in a supermarket. The cereal aisle had 100 options, and my mind froze. In the palace, someone chose everything for me. Standing there and having to choose what to eat was my first real act of freedom, and it brought me to tears. Learning to take public transportation, to manage my own money, every small task was a celebration of my liberty and autonomy. God called me to use my experience to help others. Today, I lead a nonprofit organization that provides shelter and support to women who have fled abusive situations in oppressive regimes. My knowledge of Arabic and the culture allows me to connect with them in a unique way. I can look into the eyes of a newly arrived woman and tell her, I know exactly how you feel. The fear and guilt are lies. The King sees you, and you have been set free. In 2024, I married a wonderful man, a Canadian teacher who loves Jesus with all his heart and who loves me for who I am, not for the value I can bring him. When he proposed, he didn't give me a diamond worth a year's salary. He gave me the promise of being my partner and protector, a reflection of Christ's love. My greatest treasure is no longer jewels or status. It is the unshakable peace I have in my heart. Right now, wherever you are, Jesus sees you. He knows the cage you are in, whether it's an abusive relationship, an addiction, despair, or fear. He is calling you out to freedom. The question is, will you trust him? Will you believe that he can open a way where there is none? Your miracle is waiting. Your freedom is one prayer away. If God could guide a terrified wife out of a Saudi palace in the night, he can certainly guide you out of your darkness and into his wonderful light. Subscribe if you believe God exists.